This is the innovator of violence, Tommy Dreamer. You're listening to ToxicNetwork.net, getting all your stuff that you need. Video games, horror, wrestling, whatever, girls, pornography, every single thing you can get, taking you to the extreme.
Hey, this is Kel Mitchell, and you're listening to Toxic Radio. Uh-oh, it's getting toxic.
Well, here we are, starting to work our way into this new normal.
Oh, what fresh hell is this?
Actually, it's not so bad. Coming out of our houses, social distancing, wearing masks. Actually, I kind of like that part. I feel like a sexy bandit. Except sometimes I forget my pants.
What the hell?
The point is, we're all going to get through this. Take care of each other. Be considerate. Wash your hands. And remember, Toxic Radio is here for you. We'll rock you with the music and entertain you with the shows. We'll make it just a little easier to adjust to this weird new world.
I love you guys.
We're not going anywhere, and we appreciate you being along for the ride.
Enjoy your pants.
Oh yeah, you betcha. Remember, play life safe. Play your radio toxic.
What's up, everyone? This is Jeremy from Five Finger Death Punch, and you're listening to Toxic Radio. Don't play it safe, play it toxic.
Hi, it's Steve Morrison from the President Steve Show, and you're listening to Toxic Radio. Get infected like you would with a cheap hooker.
How we doing, Hungry for Hope Podcast Nation? This is Reckless Donnie Hart here, and I got my co-host, Big Time Tim Gorge. We will have our guest calling in any minute, but right now we also have stopping by, Yanni the Greek will be in studio.
There he is.
Yanni the Greek, Yanni, I think you're here. He's doing some of the sports stuff. What's up, Yanni? How you doing?
Yeah. Hey, Donnie, let me ask you a question, buddy. All right. Did you play offensive line in high school and college? When you
high school, a little bit of that. Some semi-pro football, you know.
Okay. All right. So I want you to tell me this: what does an offensive lineman like to do? You know, what do you rather do? Pass block or run block?
Oh man, I like the attack, so I like the run block. I like the attack.
That's right. You like the attack.
I attack.
You guys are big. You guys are the big hog mollies, right? You want to go and you want to punch a defense in the mouth. Hey, so say I placed you in the middle of a game that we're up 17-0. You know, you would want to get after it.
I want to attack.
Football,
I want to attack. That's what I do. I attack.
You wouldn't want to run the ball only 8 times in the second half now, would you?
Now you got that lead, you got to run it. Especially if you got a good line. You have trust in.
Okay. I thought I was crazy.
All right, Yanni, you bring up some great points, and I guess that's what we're going to be talking about when we have you on after first. Not to be outdone by you, Yanni, but we're having Duke the Dumpster.
No, this is a legit guest here.
Legit guest? What are you saying? Our other guests aren't legit?
Yeah, what are you trying to say, cuz?
Here we go.
You know, everybody say, oh, you're a wrestler, you got to have wrestlers on the show. You know, I don't like most wrestlers. So I found one that I kind of like a little.
Okay.
And I said, I got to have this guy on. So we're going to have Mike Duke The Dumpster Droese on the show. He'll be calling in a couple minutes. His story is amazing. Talk about inspiration. You know, you look at the guy, he brought a trash can to the ring, but his story's a lot more than that, trust me. But thanks for stopping by, Yanni. I'm sure you have a lot to talk about the Eagles. Whew. Man, I know Tim.
No, right now I'm just going to relax, and I'm going to listen to this.
Yanni, we said thanks for stopping by.
Pretty good interview.
I know, Tim, you're excited. Tim, you've been involved in the pro wrestling world a little. You didn't do pro wrestling, but you've been involved in the pro boxing world. I know you're pretty pumped for this guest, right?
Yeah, I mean, you can't forget, between 94 and 96, Duke the Dumpster Droese was one of the guys that was always seen on TV, on Superstars, on Raw. He was always there carrying that trash can to the ring.
He was a guy kind of disappeared, though. I always wondered, like, what happened? You know, he seemed like he was a guy on his way up.
Right, and he had a big feud with Triple H, who turned into, Triple H.
Let's ask him. I think Duke the Dumpster is here. Mike, I think we'll call him. Mike, you there, brother? Oh, there he is. Can we hear him? We're fixing the volume. We're fixing the sound. We're ready to go. I can't hear him, Toxic. There we go. All right, I hear you now. No?
Right?
I still can't hear him.
Good.
They're fixing the volume real quick, Mike. Just give us 1 sec.
All right.
There you go,
There
brother.
he is.
You look funny. He is. I saw your mouth moving. I couldn't hear the words. What's up, brother? How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. I appreciate you guys having me on the show.
We appreciate you coming on the show, brother.
Definitely.
Right on.
So, we do some wrestling, but not everybody who tunes in's a wrestling fan. So tell everybody who you are. You do it better than me.
Mike Droese, formerly Duke The Dumpster Droese of the World Wrestling Federation. Back in the 90s, in the New Generation era, they called it. It was right before the Attitude Era, when the likes of Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock and all those guys took off to fame and fortune. But right before that was a much slower period, and the money was lower, and the houses were lower, and everything was tough at the time. But we were working hard just as well, and a lot of those guys were there. Stone Cold was there during that same time, and Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, Bret Hart, all those guys were there. So it was just an interesting time. It was a transitional period, I think, in the business, and a lot of us were kind of, breaking our backs trying to carry the company into the next era.
Yeah, there was a lot of more gimmicks back then. Your gimmick, you came in as, the Duke the Dumpster, the trash man, right? There was more gimmicks back then.
Yeah, it was still the comic book kind of goofy character era. Vince always liked two things. He liked the big guys, with big, tall, muscular guys and strong guys. And he also liked ready-made gimmicks, like something that the people could kind of get behind, and I was kind of a ready-made gimmick because who better than a garbage man for the blue-collar worker to get behind? And so I came walking in the door with the gimmick already.
Yeah,
so
you made your gimmick.
It was just perfect.
You made your gimmick. Most people get handed a gimmick, but you came in ready. You did your homework.
Yeah, I started it down in when I was wrestling in Florida. I kind of created the persona of Duke the Dumpster, but back then he was known as the garbage man, Rocco Gibraltar. And I was just doing shows and making tapes of everything I did and getting ready to try and make a move and go up there. And eventually I was successful. So, yeah, it was a good gimmick for that time. And, yeah, watching the shows and watching the product at that time, I did realize you're going to have something that caught their eye to get in the front door. So that's what I kind of prepared myself with.
What got you to that front? You said the front door, but what before that? I grew up. I got into pro wrestling. I'm a big guy like you, and that's all I ever wanted to do. I saw Hulk Hogan. What got you to the point where you said, "Hey, I'm going to make a gimmick, and I'm going to actually go to Vince and try to give this thing a go"?
Well, I was, I knew I wanted to be a wrestler right about the time of WrestleMania 1, and I was still in high school. And during that same period of time, I found out where there was a school locally near me in Miami, Florida, actually in Opelika, Florida. And this guy, Bobby Wales, trained me. And I was still a senior in high school when I was already learning pro wrestling. And I just kind of started working whatever independents there were throughout Florida. And I did some tours in the Bahamas and the Caribbean and stuff with some people. But at the same time, I was going to college. And I guess it was just that college mentality that had me studying the business. I was looking and I was paying close attention to what was going on. And I knew I had to do something different. And so that's when I came up with the whole idea of the garbage man. But yeah, I knew
some beer. Were you drinking some beers with your frat buddies and you said, "Oh, I'm going to be the garbage man, brother. We're going to do WWF." I would love to be there for that.
Funny thing is the frat brothers came up with the original name of Rocco Gibraltar when we were drinking beer in the frat house. That we did. Later on, though, when I had not used that name yet. I kind of saved Rocco Gibraltar in the back of my mind because I wanted to think about it more, which I'm glad I did, because later when I really started thinking about it, I said, okay, Rocco Gibraltar has to be something. What is he going to be? And I thought the first thing I thought of was the G, for the sake of alliteration, I thought of the G-Man, Rocco Gibraltar. It sounded cool. And I said, okay, so what's a G-Man going to be? So it could either be like an old school FBI agent. And I thought, I went, that's not going to get over. And then I said, what about the garbage man, Rocco Gibraltar? And it just kind of rolled off the tongue, man. And it sounded perfect. So that's what I went with.
And that's how it all started. But how did your story getting into the WWF was kind of you went on you took to the ground running. You went and found Vince McMahon yourself, right?
Took the matters into your own hands.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was living there down in Florida, just finishing up college, and the plan was, like I was telling you before, I put together a bunch of tape as the garbage man, and I had I made a promo tape and all this stuff, and with a highlight reel and promo and even a resume of all things. And I was getting ready to just start driving across the country to try and find a job. And then I was reading the paper one day, and it said it was talking about Hulk Hogan going to WCW and the whole steroid scandal with Vince McMahon and everything. And one of the last sentences, they were interviewing Hulk Hogan at this local convention called the NADP convention in the Miami Beach Convention Center, which is a TV executive convention. And WCW was there, obviously, and they were pushing him up and showing him off to the world as their new acquisition. But then the last sentence said in the article, Vince McMahon, who was also in attendance, had no comment. And I realized Vince McMahon was there. So that's when the wheels started turning. And actually, I was working at this private beach club at night as a night watchman with the members were like rich people that lived on this island. And one of the members just happened to be a TV executive at a local station. And overnight, I was able to get in touch with him. He gave me his credentials to wear. And I walked in there like I was a TV executive wearing a suit. And I just walked right up to Vince McMahon and just introduced myself and told him basically I wanted to work for the World Wrestling Federation. And that's how it happened.
I wonder what he was thinking. You're a big guy, too. How big are you? You're
6'6" at that time. I was probably I was a good solid 310 pounds probably.
All right, so he took notice. Dude. You weren't just some weirdo fan who wanted, you actually did your homework. You've been wrestling. You looked the part. You had a gimmick. So, that was half the battle.
And first when I walked up to him, it was funny because you could tell he was looking, and I caught him by himself. Everybody else was off to the other side milling around, like all the TV people and the agents and stuff. And Vince was drinking his cup of coffee over here by himself. And I just walked right up to him. And as I walked up to him, you could see he looked at me. He looked at my credentials. Then his eyes got really wide, and he looked up at me like that. So I guess I made a good first impression.
I could relate. I did the same thing with how I found Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. He trained me. I showed up at a tryout. I showed up late, uninvited, banging on a door, and they were filming it, and they told me to leave. And then Larry comes out. I'm 6'4", 315. He looked at me. He's like, get your ass in here and shut up. And, I liked him right away. I was like, I like this guy. And I walked back, and I'm bigger than everybody. I knew right away. I couldn't wrestle. Yeah. I could barely put a sentence together. I'm not that smart. I'm not the best looking. But, I was athletic. I was big. I was mean. And I was hungry like you. I was hungry. I didn't know why. I knew I wanted to wrestle.
Larry knows. That's
Larry
awesome.
knew.
That's an awesome story.
Yeah, I can relate to your story. That's why I thought it was funny when I heard your story. And then you got a call back, right? Like a week later?
Yeah, JJ Dillon was the head of talent relations at that time, and he called me. And,
great guy.
Brought me up for a tryout and all that good stuff.
Where did they bring it? Florida? Really was that Florida still, or the FCW, or how was it back then?
No, this is way before any developmental territories, man. They flew you up to actual WWF TV.
Oh, Connecticut?
And you just did dark matches. And I wrestled Reno Riggins for 2 nights, and he put me over like $1 million.
Yeah, I saw that.
Made me look great. And so
tell us about the 20-foot ring. You had to get used to that. I read that story.
You've done your homework.
I did my homework. Man. I'm smarter than I look. So you're there. You got to try out with Reno Riggins. And
Yeah, it was the tryout.
tell us a
It was
story.
The first night. I want to say it was probably like Scranton, Pennsylvania, or Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I can't remember, but I just
doesn't
remember
matter.
It doesn't matter.
They're
It
both
was the first night
shitholes.
though, and we did this whole match, man, and it went great. And I threw him off, and I did boom, boom, the trash compactor, I would later call it, and everybody popped, and it was great. And then I had one more thing that I wanted to do, because when I was wrestling in Florida, I used to do this move where at the end I would slam my opponent way over the other corner of the ring, and I would walk back across and get up on the turnbuckle, and I would clear the whole ring, hit a splash, right? It was really impressive for a big guy. The problem was that was a 16-foot ring. The WWF ring was 20 foot. I slammed Reno Riggins in the far corner and turned around to start walking. And when I turned around and looked, it was at that moment that I realized
you fucked up.
I messed up.
Well, you didn't stop. You kept on going. I like that. You said, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to do this.
I said, screw it. And I just remember the guys afterwards, the Kid and Razor,
Sean
Scott
Waltman.
Hall came up. Yeah, Sean Waltman and Scott Hall came up to me after. They go, hey, man, you should just finish with that twirly bird thing you do, bro. But then they said, we saw you going up on the corner. We were like, what's he doing? And I swear to God, I went up on that corner, and I jumped with everything I had. And I made it about halfway across the ring. I landed on my feet and bounced like a rabbit, and then still barely got to Reno Riggins with a headbutt right in his side. I think I about killed him with the headbutt. But needless to say, I never did that splash again in that ring.
That's awesome story. Tim, what are you going to...
I just need one. I went over, read a bunch of your stories. I just need one story of you and the Click.
Oh, you brought up the Click, man. You set yourself up, Mike.
Me and the Click. Well, I always got along with the Click.
Well, tell everybody who the Click is. Not all of our fans are wrestling. Whatever the big word is, I'm looking for. Illiterate.
Aficionados.
During those days.
Yeah, who's the Click?
Yeah,
tell them
during those days there was a particular group of guys in the World Wrestling Federation. Shawn Michaels, Scott Hall wrestled as Razor Ramon. Kevin Nash wrestled as Diesel. The 1-2-3 Kid, which was Sean Waltman. Later on, Hunter would come. And to an extent, PJ Walker, that Just Incredible, was in that group too. But those guys had Vince's ear, man. And anything they wanted to do, they could do. The office would do whatever they said. And a lot of guys resented that fact. Me, I was just a nut job anyway, and I got along with everybody, and I really didn't care. But there were instances where I would hang out with them where interesting things would happen, because I was a partier with the best of them, and a lot of those guys were partiers too. And there was this one time we were out at a bar, and I never remember. I'm not good with states or any of that, or towns or any of that, but I just remember specific events. And this was at a bar with me and Shawn Michaels, and I think it was Scott Hall. And Shawn was really messed up, which he often got really messed up. And when he got messed up, he was nasty to people. I mean, mean. And he started talking smack to this group of guys that was at this bar, big old dudes too. And he basically said nobody in that bar was going to get laid because the wrestlers were there. He said, and worse stuff than that. But so these guys, I could tell, first of all, they came up to me a couple times. They go, "Your buddy needs to shut up." And I'm like, "Oh God, here we go." And somehow I think I got Scott Hall to go out and start the car or something. And I had to figure out a way, because they were tuning up to fight and beat up Shawn Michaels. And I just decided what I had to do was I walked up to the biggest dude of the bunch, and I grabbed him by his ears, and I kissed him right on his lips. I basically said, "Now what are we going to do?" And I swear to you, he had tears in his eyes. He almost started crying. And I said, "Okay." And all of his buddies around him just stood there staring like, "Well, what are we supposed to do?" And in that moment, I grabbed Shawn Michaels by his belt loop and dragged him out the door. And we got in the car and got the hell out of there. But there were other instances where he wasn't so lucky. Like they always talk about, where was it? In New York, where he got jumped by somebody. And it was bad. He got beat up one time real bad, apparently. So Yeah, but it was interesting hanging out with the clique. That was for sure. I partied a lot with Scott Hall.
You like Scott
I mean,
Hall?
we would just. I got along with him. He's very arrogant though, but if you understood what Scott Hall was all about, then you could deal with it. He would constantly try to talk down to you, but then if you just look at him like, Scott, shut the fuck up, and he would shut up. But
I can see
yeah,
that.
he
I wrestled his
he's
son. I'm
just
not trying
one
to
of
bash people. I used to wrestle with his son, Cody, and same way.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not here to bash anybody. I don't give a fuck about anybody anyway. But, you know, he had that same, like, I'm Scott Hall's son. You know, no, you're Cody.
Yeah.
You know, he looked
Well, I
just
mean,
like
that's
him.
where
He
he
was
learned
big,
from,
too. They're
yeah.
big dudes. I'm big, but, you know, they're
Yeah.
big. They're probably like, Cody's probably a little bigger than you.
What's funny about that is Scott Hall wasn't as big as I thought he was. I remember, man, when I wrestled him when I was like 18 years old in Florida. You know, when they still had that TV they used to do in Tampa. For a long time, it was Championship Wrestling from Florida, but it was in the process of being kind of swallowed up by the NWA and then WCW. And during one of the last years, they were taping at that little Tampa Sportatorium. Me and a buddy went up there when I was first breaking in, maybe 87, 88, something like that. And he was wrestling up there as Big Scott Hall. And so it was me and my buddy as the executioners and this guy Sam Bass versus Scott Hall, Ron Simmons, and Brady Boone on a TV match. Of course, we did a squash job. But I just remember looking at Scott Hall then, and I go, this guy's a giant. He is huge. But then when I saw him, like when I started working in the WWF with him, I realized he's not that big. And the funny thing is, this is the story. We always used to do the Special Olympics. You know, we used to do a lot of great causes, but the Special Olympics was always great. And I just remember we were out there at the Special Olympics one year, and we were walking around and going to different events and meeting the athletes and doing stuff. And it was me and Scott Hall and maybe a couple other wrestlers. We went to this thing with the Harlem Globetrotters. It was like a newer version of the Globetrotters, but they could still play basketball. And we just kind of did this little appearance together. We signed some autographs and met some people. And in the end, we took a picture with one of the Harlem Globetrotter guys, and I'll never forget this. It was me, this Globetrotter guy, and Scott Hall. And I'm up here. The Globetrotter guy was a little bit shorter than me, and Scott Hall was just a little taller maybe than the Globetrotter. The thing about it was that Scott didn't realize whoever took the picture took a full-length picture, and Scott got way up on his tippy toes for the picture. And it was the funniest thing, and I swear to this day I wish I had that picture just to rub it in his face. Now with all this social media stuff, it would be hilarious.
That's
but
a big thing, though. Everybody wants to be taller.
Ramon on his tippy toes, trying to look as tall as the Globetrotter guy and Duke the Dumpster Droese. But yeah,
he wanted to be you. Scott Hall wanted to be Duke the Dumpster.
Well, I don't know about that, but he wanted to be tall that day. I know that.
Who was one of the best wrestlers that you had the chance to work with?
There's a lot, man.
As a person or as a wrestler?
As an actual wrestler.
Triple H?
Triple H was always great to wrestle. He was willing to do anything, and he didn't complain at all. And Lord knows I beat him up. I threw him all over the place.
Yeah, we read your stories on Facebook.
You tried to beat him out of there. You tried to beat the click up.
Yeah, I had it in my mind one time I was going to beat up the click. That's when I was about losing.
Bret Hart set that up.
Oh, he loved it. He loved it. I was Bret Hart's entertainment for probably a solid year.
Bret Hart was your, you guys rode together on the road, right?
Yeah, Bret the Hitman Hart. We rode together for quite a bit, and yeah, I was the craziest shit, and he would just egg it on, and egg it on, and egg it on, and that's cool. I don't have a problem with that. I look back on it now and laugh, but yeah, I had the opportunity to wrestle a lot of great wrestlers. Jerry the King Lawler was amazing to wrestle because it was so easy. I didn't have to do anything. He did everything. And another one, I got to wrestle Terry Funk and Fit Finlay, both in Germany when I worked for Big Auto, and that was an amazing experience.
Yeah, they're awesome. That must have been awesome.
Oh, it was amazing. It was funny. Everybody's trying to tune me up like I should be nervous. Like, oh, you're going to fight Terry Funk like it's a shoot or something. I'm going, oh, okay, guys. Like I'm gullible. And we went out there. We didn't say a word before the match. We just went out there with a house down in Hanover, Germany, and it was an amazing thing.
That's when you know you're with somebody who's really good at what they do, and you don't have to say shit.
Terry Funk has always been one of the best.
I found a lot of them guys who are known as badasses or hardcore. Once you get in the ring with them, you realize how good they are at technical wrestling and leading you. And we were just talking about Sabu. You know, he's another. A lot of these guys that you wouldn't think are good at wrestling, they are. They're not just hardcore guys. And
yeah, like Finley, I mentioned him. He's an amazing worker in the ring. You know, and he's got this rep as being a badass and everything. And he is a tough dude. Don't get me wrong, but. Very professional in the ring. Another guy, Mick Foley. I wrestled him as Mankind, and I remember watching him work for so long, going, "Oh man, he's killing people. How does he do that without hitting the guy?" Like he had this thing where he'd sit you in the corner, and he would run from across the ring and knee you right in the face. I mean, full speed knee you in the face, and I could never figure out how he did that. And when we wrestled on TV, he did it. And he didn't even, it felt like this. He didn't even touch me.
That's
and
a sign of a great worker.
I was like, this guy's a great worker. Absolutely. So.
Yeah, I know you said Barry Horowitz. You talked about him. You said he was a stand-up guy. That's a guy people forget a lot, Barry Horowitz. I know you had good stuff to say about him.
The thing about it is people shouldn't forget about him because he had such a long career. You know, when I was watching championship wrestling from Florida, again, I grew up in Florida, he was down there as Jack Hart for a while. And he had the streak where he did not win a match. It was like 0-70 something or 0-100. It was like the reverse Goldberg record. And it was a big deal because then he won the Florida championship. But Barry's been all over the world. Barry Horowitz worked for Vince Sr. A lot of people don't know that. Barry Horowitz was up working the roads in the late 70s and early 80s, you know, even up in the Northeast. And, you know, he gets respect and he deserves respect. And he worked in the wrestling business the way you should do it. He did it the way you should do it. He never got wrapped up in doing drugs or drinking or, you know, staying up all night with the boys. He was a family man. His family came first. He earned money and took it home to his family and provided, and that was it. It was a job for him, and I have to respect that because Lord knows I did everything the complete opposite.
Me too.
I was
Guilty.
there just to party and have a good time.
Guilty as charged.
I think one of the first shirts I wore on the show was a Barry Horowitz shirt.
Yeah, Barry Horowitz
winter shirt.
Tim's a big fan of him. I don't know why.
When I was a kid, when he pinned Skip the Bonnie Donna, that was the biggest pop I ever had. Like, that was crazy.
That was a great moment.
One of the first times you've seen what was supposed to be a jobber pin like a guy that was on like a decent streak. And it was just amazing. They came out with a shirt. They came out with everything. He got a decent sized push.
But you brought a great point up there. You said he was a guy, you know, I've been in wrestling, man. You know, I told you I fucked up my opportunity, man. There's a lot of shit that's around there, drugs, and, you know, we all have egos. And so you had this great run with WWF. I remember back then, you know, I was really into wrestling back then in the 90s. And you had this run, but obviously something happened. You were there 94, 95, 96. What was kind of what got you out of WWF and into, you know, some darker, let's tell the ugly a little.
Yeah, I started doing drugs. I started taking painkillers by the handfuls just to get through. You know, there was an unwritten rule back then, man. If you got hurt, you didn't tell nobody. You just kept working. Otherwise, you lost your spot. And to that extent, you would do anything it took to try and stay on the road. And, you know, for a lot of guys, that equaled taking a lot of drugs. And, you know, we were getting drug tested pretty strict. You couldn't do any illegal drugs. You couldn't do steroids or anything. But the loophole was you could take any prescription drug as long as you told them on the drug test. You didn't even have to show them a prescription. All you had to do was tell them you were taking
Percocet,
which I always make.
You're good. All you had to say was Percocet.
Yeah,
you're good. Xanax.
The funny thing the joke I always used to make is I don't think I knew how to spell Xanax for the first year I was taking it.
Is it with a Z?
Because I had to spell it on the little form, and I spelled it with a Z for like at least 6 months. And they were like,
that's when I knew you were on it.
The next. Went, oh, my bad. Never had a prescription for it. But anyway, back to your question, yes, man, it was the drugs, and the thing was, I started getting disillusioned with the business and angry because then they pump you and they push you really well at first, and then a lot of times they kind of pull back, and then you got to sort of do the honors for a lot of guys. And I started doing a lot of jobs, and I took it personally because I wasn't prepared for that business. And at the same time, coincidentally, I was taking a lot of drugs, and it was not a good mix. So I was getting really angry and really irrational and having these meetings with Vince McMahon where I was just telling him how pissed off I was, and I wasn't happy being there. And eventually he just sent Jerry Briscoe up to me at the TV, and he told me to go home. And then it got really bad, and then there was no going back. I tried to go back to wrestling a couple times, but it just didn't work because I was just down that spiral of drug addiction and alcohol when I was living in Florida. It was just terrible. So, yeah, it took a lot from me, unfortunately. But things are great now. I mean, I've been through it a few times. I've learned a lot of hard lessons, but now I'm in a position where things are a lot better, and I'm actually having the opportunity to help other people that are going through the same struggles, thankfully.
So what got you there to flip the switch?
What do you mean? To flip the switch to get clean?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, one of the big lessons I tell people I work with now is things have to get painful enough for you to finally change and stop doing what you're doing, because otherwise you're not going to be ready. People call it rock bottom or whatever they want to call it. But for me, it was getting arrested on felony drug charges. I was living here in Tennessee working as a school teacher. And when I relapsed in 2009, I had a foot injury. And I started taking pills again, and it moved really fast. I started taking a lot of pills. And then I graduated to IV drug use. I started melting morphine pills and shooting up. And so I'm working as a teacher by day, and by night I'm running around with all the wrong people. And with those people, you would barter, buy and sell this to get that. I was getting medicine, drugs from a doctor that weren't strong enough for me. So I sold them to get more powerful drugs like morphine and other things that I could put in a needle. And it was selling some of my drugs a couple times to a guy that I had been running with for a long time. He got busted, and he just flipped and set a bunch of people up. And I sold him pills twice, like 6 pills and then 4 pills the next day. And he had a wire on him, and that was it. And they came and arrested me. And that's when it all ended. And I knew it had to stop. So, I put myself into rehab because I knew I couldn't get physically clean without help. If you're a needle junkie, you can't just stop. And so I went and got clean.
Know that.
And once I got physically clean, I was willing to do whatever it took. So they say do 90 meetings in 90 days. I did a meeting every night for a year straight, nonstop. Every night I went to Narcotics Anonymous meetings, and that's what saved me. That, and then I started as part of my plea deal, I went to the drug court program. But yeah, man, it was getting arrested that really shook me, and that changed things.
We can relate. I think I told you about our show. I didn't know Tim 5 years ago, but I was at a rock bottom when he was going through a rock bottom. I got locked up for drugs. I was facing life in prison, and at the same time, Tim was addicted to drugs in Philly. He was overdosing, and we just had it. We didn't know each other, but I knew at that point, I got back off my feet, and I fought back. And I wouldn't meet Tim till years later, but just by coincidence, we both hit that rock bottom around the same time. And once we got our life back together, we connected, and I was like, we got to do something, my man. And that's kind of how the show was built.
Ask you guys, though. Aren't you guys glad to be out of the game now with all this fentanyl and shit running around out in the streets?
It's crazy. We have a girl on the show. She actually works for the city of Philadelphia. She tests the drugs for fentanyl, but they're not drugs. They're pills. They sell Percocet that you think comes from a doctor, but they're really made in a lab, and she's the one who tests them. She tests them to let people know, hey, this Xanax has fentanyl in it.
People are selling fake pills in the street. You're right.
It's every type.
And they're lacing other stuff with it as well. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
It's every type of pill. I have so many people that have died over just taking pills and thinking they're just taking a normal pill or normal painkiller, but it's just fentanyl. And fentanyl changed everything. It caused me to overdose multiple times. I used to take drug tests after I overdosed And they're like, you said you did heroin, but we don't have that in your system. We have this, this, and this. I'm like, I'm telling you, I tried to do it before everybody knew about fentanyl. I was like, what I thought I was doing was heroin, yet it's not coming up on any drug test. And people are, when I'm trying to get help, they're thinking I'm a liar.
Yeah. Well, they test for it now, boy. I'm glad they do because it's a scary, scary thing. There's so many people dying out there. I try to really, really convince. Sometimes it feels like I'm trying to convince people not to go back to that life because you don't know, man, from one day to the next, if you're just going to get that bad batch. You think you're buying heroin and it's laced with fentanyl, or you think you're buying a bag of meth and they're cutting meth with fentanyl. I mean, people are just dropping like flies now. I work for a drug court program, and we have Narcan on us.
We did Narcan live. We did it live. We did it live on the show on a dummy. We showed people how to give Narcan. We had the girl from Philly. They call her the Queen of Harm Reduction, Destiny Campanella. Great, great girl. She came into the studio, brought a dummy, and I gave it Narcan. Because, we like humor, we like laughing, we like bringing, guys like you on the show. But I feel like it's my duty to help these people out here. Some good people dying and
educate people. You're absolutely right, my brother. We got to educate people and bring them along and make them understand how serious this is. I go to the schools and I talk to kids now with our district attorney here locally, and it's not your regular DARE program. It's kind of blood and guts and serious, and we tell them how serious it is. Hopefully, making an impact. But yeah, we got to get out there and we got to educate people.
People got to realize who it is. People think it's these crackheads you see on. They hear junkie. They got a picture in their head. But you were a teacher, actually professional athlete. You probably even when I was in my bad, people look good. They might look good, but these drug addicts just aren't on the corner homeless. Some of them are people with professional jobs, people with great backgrounds. They're your mom, your uncle, your sister, your brother.
I've had friends that died, cousins that died. My cousin Christian, they didn't know what they were getting into. They thought they were doing a certain drug, and then it's just fentanyl. It pops up.
It could be anybody, man. It don't discriminate, color, race, creed, anything.
Don't discriminate at all.
But
exactly right, man.
That's another thing of your story. I see you do all this stuff. You work with the drug programs. You help people. You speak out. That was something real cool. And people seem to listen to somebody like you. You're intimidating too. You're big, but you've been around the block. You're not bullshitting. You don't bullshit. That's what I like from what I got. I hate bullshit.
I don't.
I hate bullshit.
Well, you see, I learned. This was probably my one big relapse, and the lesson from the first time I got clean on my own in 2003 to this time when I had to get clean because I got busted and everything had to change. The big lesson I learned is I had to quit trying to hide it from everybody, because I got clean and sober in 03 and I decided to get my life back in order, and I went back to school and got a master's degree and became a school teacher and all this great stuff, but I wasn't practicing any recovery. And one of the big things is I hid all of my dark secrets from everybody and anybody. And that creates a problem because then you don't face it. And then sooner or later you can get complacent and make a mistake again, which I did in 09. So I learned I need to talk. I need to talk to as many people as I can and share and try to help people, because in the process of us talking about stuff and trying to help other individuals, we're helping ourselves too. By giving it away, we get it back. So that's what we have to do.
I've had so many people reach out to me. They're like, Donnie, I'm going through, or that they fought with drugs or whatever, and they're like, but I'm so embarrassed because people judge me. How do you openly go on? I talk about, I was terrified. I bring up my past. I was a pretty big wrestler, Pretty Boy Larry Sharp. They said I was the next this, that, and I blew it. All because of me. I couldn't point the finger. That's the worst part. It wasn't like, oh, it happened. No, it happened because of me. I might have made excuses back then, but it happened because I fucked up. I fucked up, and it's not cool telling people, hey, I was given this chance to chase my dream, and I blew it. I let down my family.
But
friends.
You know what though? I felt the same way. I had so much regret for the way I left the World Wrestling Federation. There was so much more I could do. And not to mention, just around the corner was the damn Attitude Era where everybody started making millions of dollars. All that stuff. I had regrets for ages. So much shame and guilt. And that was some of the major stuff that I had to process and realize, you know what? There's a lot of stuff going on here. First of all, Shame and guilt will kill recovery. Shame and guilt will eat you alive if you let it. Another thing was, it took me a long time to realize this, but I think I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. And I think I had to go along the exact path that I had to go. So I shouldn't regret it. I should be thankful for it. And it was hard to see it that way for a long time. But I realized, people often ask me, don't you regret not being in the Attitude Era? And I used to always cringe when I heard that question. But the reality is, if I was there during the Attitude Era,
You want to
one
be
of the
here
main
right now.
things they stopped, yeah, probably because they stopped drug testing for a long time. And I was one of the craziest partiers. Anybody could tell you, man, I would be right in the middle of the mix everywhere at any party. And if they weren't drug testing, man, I would have probably been one of the first ones in line doing all that Nubane and heroin and all that other shit. I probably wouldn't be here. So I should be thankful for the path I was given. And I'm right here where I'm supposed to be doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
That's a great message to other people. I feel the same way. You know, I regret some of my stuff just because what it caused the ones I love. But I'm so happy today where I'm at that, you know, I wouldn't change whatever got me here. It might have been a crazy road. But people going through this, that's why you're a great example. Anybody out there going through bad times, look at you, look at me. You know, it might be bad right now, but don't give up. What would you like to say to anybody in active addiction or just getting clean or any kind of, it don't have to be addiction, depression, suicide, domestic violence, anybody going through something that sucks, something that really fucking sucks? What do you tell them?
Speak, talk about it. Don't stay silent. Ask for help. Take that one big first step that is so difficult for so many people and surrender to the process. If it's drugs and alcohol or whatever the case it may be, surrender to the fact that it's something that you no longer have control over and you can't do it without help. There is no shame in that. As a matter of fact, the minute you open your mouth and you ask for help, you become so powerful in this process. It was a hard thing for me to learn, man. I hated the word surrender. That means weakness to big guys like us. And I didn't like that word. I didn't want to surrender to anybody or anything. But when drug addiction beat my ass down so freaking bad, and I sat there and I lost so much. And I remember sitting there on the porch with the investigators handing me a sealed indictment with my mother sitting next to me in tears. I realized this is it. I have to give it up. I can't do this anymore. And I can't control it. So I need help. Ask for help. It will change your life. I promise you. And go to meetings. Meetings are an amazing thing, man. Get around other people that are going through the same struggles. It will save your life.
You know, you heard it from him. A big guy like you, if you can surrender, anybody else can. That's a great thing. I always, you know, we're taught to be big men, you know, big professional athletes. And that was the hardest part, accepting that our way's not working. You know, that's hard. Because you're admitting that you fucked up. That's the hardest part.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
that's a great
that's
thing.
something that we need to do, though. You're absolutely, yeah.
If you can admit it, if I can admit it, anybody out there going through hard times, anybody listening, you know, listen to what Mike says. He went from, you know, WWF to stardom, but he still, everything you did, even after that, you did teaching. I heard great things you did. You touched a lot of lives teaching in them schools before you had the drug bust, and then you got right back on your feet. Well, you're one good foot now, and you hit a lot of obstacles.
That's right, brother.
Right? That's an amazing story, you know. Like all this stuff.
Amputee jokes.
You had reasons.
Yeah, that's some of my records of the past.
You don't bring it up because you don't. I feel like you don't bring it up because you don't want excuses. But you know that. That's how I got
excuses.
I know you don't. That's why you don't bring it up. But you lost a leg, and you still.
Yeah.
You know,
I'm
you had
wearing like a badge
reason.
of honor now, brother.
Yeah.
No,
that's an
This is
amazing
part
story.
of my records. The records of my past. You know, when I was going through the deal with my foot and going to the doctors, and I was putting off surgery. Why? Because I wanted to run around out in the streets and get more drugs. I wanted to keep getting high. And I knew if I ended up getting surgery and got it fixed, subconsciously I was thinking, I'll have to stop doing the drugs. And I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to keep going from doctor to doctor to doctor and getting more drugs and go out on the street and get more drugs. And I pushed it so long that the foot ended up just falling apart and getting infected after a surgery, and I lost the foot. But you know, that was one of those life's lessons. That happened right at the same time where I got busted. So all of that stuff came crashing down on me at once. Yeah, and that's just the way it all came together. And, people like us have been humbled by life, and that's okay. It's good to walk through life as a humble man or a humble individual. And if you are not careful, life will humble you several times over, and it's how you react. If you can bounce back with humility and share your story to other individuals selflessly, as a humble human being, you will make it. You will make it in this life, and you will be okay, and you will save other people's lives as well.
And don't ever rest on your laurels.
Yeah.
No.
Mike,
we'll do more.
Before we get you out of here, I know you do some other podcasts. Any things you want to tell our viewers about to tune in, check you out? Any message you want to give them, man? It's all you.
Man, I'm part of a great podcast family right now. We all work under, it's called Wrestling with Anything But. That's the original podcast. But now there's I don't even know, 7 or 8 podcasts. Mine is The Road to Recovery. It's a great podcast. It's about recovery. It's about substance abuse recovery.
Can we find it on Facebook? Or can we find it? We'll put it up on the screen.
And Road to Recovery on Facebook on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Central. Me and Avi Klein, my co-host, and we talk about any tough situations that people go through and how they came through it, or we even talk about people who are currently struggling, and we try to give them advice and share experience. And we have great audience members that come in and share their stories and things of that nature. So it's a great podcast. It's exactly what I wanted to do. It is a passion of mine. It is a labor of love, and it is a great podcast. Anybody could do. I think a lot of people expected me to do another wrestling podcast like everybody, and I know wrestling, but I don't really watch wrestling now. But this is the thing that I felt passionate about, and it has taken off. In the last 2 months, between me and the other podcasts, we have over 1 million views across, and that's just Facebook. Not, we've got all the other platforms now we're getting ready to start on. But yeah, he's got other podcasters he's got Ray Lloyd, Glacier. He's got Del Wilkes, the Patriot. He's got Paul Roma. He's got.
I was checking it out.
He's got Bill DeMott, my good buddy, Bill DeMott, Hugh Morris. He's got Don Morocco. Of all people.
We got it up on the screen.
He's getting ready to bring in, I think Mark Marrow might be coming in.
It's crazy. We were just talking about, we were just listening to a podcast with Jim Cornette talking about if Don Morocco should have been WWF Heavyweight Champion back in his day.
Great stories. Yeah. I hope everybody tunes in, checks you out. Mike, thank you so much for stopping by, man. You've been awesome. Keep up the good fight, brother. People are noticing.
Greatly appreciate it.
You guys do the same. Thank you again for having me on your show. I really, really appreciate it.
Have a good night, Mike. See you, brother.
See you guys.
We don't appreciate Yanni as much, but he's here.
Yanni the Greek has entered the building again.
Yeah, I'm here.
We're having Yanni coming back in. Yanni's pissed off. One time we kicked him off for the guy they made that movie about. Now he gets knocked off for ex-wrestler.
He was doing push-ups the whole time.
No, I'm sitting here listening, and I just have 2 points there off the interview, which was a real good interview.
Yanni the Greek, let me reintroduce you. We got Yanni the Greek here, our sports and gambling expert. He listened to some of the interview. He's back. Yanni, what do you think about that interview? Give us your points, brother.
Number one, the first thing that stood out to me, it was real fascinating listening to you two talk about, just kind of like the business and how it goes, and it was actually I learned a lot.
I had to stop myself. I could relate.
It seemed like
I feel like my story was like the modern day his story. How I fucked up. I felt like I was doing what Duke did in the 2000s, what he did in the 90s.
I just mean it just from a business angle, I obviously I don't know a whole bunch about the back end of wrestling, and so it was just kind of fascinating listening to you two kind of bat that back and forth. And number two, there was a great message he had. It's seek help. Don't shame is the enemy or whatever. Ask for help.
It sounds
big
like
dude like that.
It sounds like such an easy thing, but right? I've been there. Tim been there. Coming from a guy, he's bigger than me. You know what I mean? I'm a big guy. It sounds easy, but it's not. we live in a world where they try to, this male dominance. You're big, strong,
and everything.
We're in pro wrestling, and then we're gonna say I need help, right?
You know how tough it is for Donnie to ask me to borrow $5 all the time. Jesus.
I don't ask for directions, let alone to say, "Hey, I fucked up my life. Can you help me?"
Exactly. Yeah.
It's not easy, but there's no shame in it. The only thing I ever regret is not asking for help sooner.
Sooner, right?
Yeah,
that's
obviously.
I never heard anybody who asked for help regret it. I've heard people who regret not doing it.
At our core, humans do want to help each other. I know you look in the world today, and it doesn't seem like that, but I think for most of humans' life, we've wanted to help each other. We want to congregate, get together.
Yeah, I mean, and somebody being in that struggle, you lose some of your best friends because you are afraid to ask for that help, right? So you're like,
or you don't ask till it's too late, and you do,
exactly.
Like so I just thought that was a real good message, and
he was a real deal too.
Yeah,
I didn't want to bump up his. That was the one area where I really watched wrestling, and I remember him coming on. That was like the moment I loved wrestling the most, around like the mid '90s. And he came on. He was a big dude, and he was a guy. He hunted down Vince McMahon and found him and said, "Could you imagine?" Vince McMahon is not a boss. He's a guy who owns $1 billion company.
Bro, do you remember those gimmicks back in that day, though?
Yeah, but he hunted him down and he found him at a convention or something and said, "Hey,"
snuck in with someone else's ID.
And that's kind of how how I got into wrestling. I was telling him, it was not the same thing, but I remember Larry Sharp looking at me, and he trained monsters. I'm like, as long as all I got to do is get this guy to see me. I'm not really invited to this tryout. I'm late, and all I need is for him to see me. And they're about to throw me out. I'm trying to make a noise, and he looks at me, and he looks me up and down, just like Vince looked at him. And he probably saw the hunger, maybe because I haven't slept in a day in my eyes or whatever. And I just shaved my mohawk the day before. I had hair still on me.
Can you bring the mohawk back?
I'm thinking about it, but I could relate to how he had a dream, and he's like, how the hell do I go get it? He wasn't going to sit back. And what happened? Vince McMahon called him a week later, and he got hired by WWF. And
I mean, it just goes to show you, if you're prepared and you're confident in your abilities, you know what I mean? Ask for that promotion, ask for that raise or whatever it is, you know what I mean? Go out and get it. Because don't sit around.
Are you saying me and Tim should get a raise on Toxic Radio?
I mean,
that's what we're saying.
Fuck Joe Rogan. Fuck Howard Stern. Anybody, I want a raise. Pay me. What do they say? Show me the money, Tim.
We're here to learn lessons.
I'm not a businessman. I'm a businessman.
Hungry for Hope needs a pay raise, Yanni. You bring up a great point.
Might cut the check, cuz.
You're not here just to give us lessons on what we should do on a podcast. What are you here to tell us today?
No, so it's been a real positive, good, solid podcast so far. I'm ready to ruin
He's about to bring the negative.
I'm ready to rain down on Eagles fans and
I want
this team.
I want you to show me what you showed me outside with what Carson Wentz does.
I mean, I don't know if we have enough room, but the
no,
footwork,
we can make it happen.
I mean, so we'll start there. All right,
Johnny, you're gonna stay seated here. I'm gonna have to rain down whatever you showed Tim outside.
Sure,
keep it in the pants, brother.
Okay, I got you. All right, so, but what we were talking about really was footwork, right? And you hear about it all the time, and nobody knows what the hell they're talking about with footwork. And I'm not gonna sit here and tell you I'm a quarterback coach, but I do know what bad footwork looks like. And I want to start the easiest throw to see this is that first interception that Carson throws in the second quarter.
How many were there?
There were 2 and a fumble. No, 3. 3. Either way,
the first starting quarterback type stuff.
The first one happens with about 4 minutes, or no, under the 2-minute warning in the first quarter. Minute and a half left.
In the first half.
In the first half. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, this is one of just the laziest throws, and I understand he was under pressure. I get it. Yes, there was injuries. Yes, we started out without Lane Johnson. And, by the way, the Washington's pass rush is very for real, and you're going to see them wreck a lot of game plans this year. So,
yeah, probably not.
I mean, just watch. That dude, Chase Young, that dude ain't no joke. All right,
he's not a joke to the Eagles, but
no, and neither is Ryan Kerrigan. Ryan Kerrigan's been a good player in this league for a long time.
He has a podcast, I think. He's a big pro wrestling fan. I know he had a big podcast.
Ryan Kerrigan, yeah. I mean, he's been a star for a long time. Here, you just don't hear a lot about him. Yeah,
I want to stop talking about him. Tim hates me because I kept on talking about him.
But
I'm a stud.
But it starts in Carson's head where he just, I mean, he doesn't open his hips up to the receiver. He's just kind of like relied on just winging it with his arm like this is college. And sure enough, the pass is inside shoulder instead of outside close to the sideline where it's supposed to be. picked off. We're lucky it didn't score.
Now, Yanni, I got to bring up something. I've been saying this I've been saying it all year. You don't pick. Let me finish too. You don't pick a quarterback in the second round unless there's a reason. After
First
seeing
round.
week one, is there a reason we picked a quarterback in the second round? Is there a reason?
I mean, for sure.
And you know who I'm talking about?
Sure, right.
Jalen
And
Hurts?
I don't want to turn this into a Jalen Hurts thing. I don't think we're going to see Jalen Hurts anytime soon. No, but it's exactly what you're saying right now. There's definitely reason that he's on the roster, and it's beyond just injuries and COVID and all that stuff that the media wants to play up. You're absolutely right. Now, am I going to sit here and tell you Carson Wentz is a bad player? No. And Tim, you and I were talking about it on the way in.
He's my quarterback.
We were talking about it on the way in. Maybe it's because he hasn't had game experience.
We had
and
no
practice time.
preseason.
No preseason, that kind of thing.
No reps.
So what falls apart, when you start getting tired, right? Your feet are going to be the first thing that falls apart when you get tired.
Your legs.
But-
Legs always go first.
But, I mean, when we're sitting here and the conversation about Carson Wentz isn't, is he a good quarterback? It's, is he a great quarterback? Is he, a Super Bowl leading quarterback? That's the conversation.
Ooh.
And what we saw this week was not that.
Bro, it's first week. No
Yes.
preseason. No
Yes.
preseason happened
Yes,
at all.
I understand. I'm
So-
not gonna tell you. I'm not changing anything about what I feel about Carson Wentz.
This was essentially his practice.
I understand that, but he's got to be.
And he was doing really well until Donnie was like, "Oh, they're going to get a shutout." And next thing you know, what happened?
Again, we can make all the excuses we want about the offensive line and everything like that, but at the end of
We
the
didn't
day,
have Lane Johnson.
we
That
didn't have
wasn't
Lane
big.
Johnson,
He's
and-
back this week.
And he's back this week. Jack Driscoll, who was
He
playing
got
well
hurt. He
at
got-
right tackle, also got hurt, and that's when it
What was
really,
it? Brandon Graham had a concussion, or
Brandon Graham
That's
got hurt.
defense.
Vinny Curry got hurt in back-to-back drives there in the second.
What do you
half.
think about this week? That Rams team looked good. That's what we're playing, right?
Rams look pretty sharp. They weren't able to finish their drives as well as you kind of would imagine.
shout out to FanDuel for that winning.
You got it. You hit it.
Yeah,
Good.
yeah.
That saved my entire week because we can get into
What
the rest
picks?
of what happened.
What picks do you like this week? Your picks were. I had so many people hit me up that never bet. Family members. They're like Yanni the Greek in the beginning. Your picks were killing it. You did good on the Kentucky Derby the week before. You got the 1 and 2 pick there. That Kansas City pick, which I wasn't too big on.
It hit.
You said the
It hit,
over,
and I
and
got
you
killed.
said Kansas City.
Right,
And I know so many people who bet that, and I was like, don't be mad at me. They're like, oh, he's your sports and gambling expert. We're gonna bet it. My dad, my grandma bet it. And, you got to realize my
I'm here to
grandma,
win Papa Hart
my
some money,
grandma,
all right?
my grandma's not even alive, and she bet it. So that was weird.
No, I saw one of our
we had people
viewers-
coming out of
Now,
the grave to
my-
bet because of you.
My stepdad gave you a shout out after the first bets.
You're becoming legit.
I'm here to keep doing the work for you guys. I saw somebody was real smart. See, they listened to my Bengals. One of our viewers, you sent me her text.
Yeah. Brooklyn.
She took the Bengals on the spread instead of the money line like I
She
did.
took
so
them on
she
the
ended
spread.
Up winning. They covered the 3.5. Good for them.
She's like, I think she bought a jet with her money or something.
Hold on. The guy says the kicker says he cramped up as he was kicking the ball. Hold on. Are we in the age where kickers are making excuses now?
You know how
Is
many
that what's
times
When
happening?
I played
Ramp up
football,
to-
kickers weren't allowed to talk. They had a different locker room. They couldn't look at you. They weren't even considered football players. This is the world we live in.
You're being very,
2020, kickers are allowed to talk.
very discriminatory against kickers.
Kickers
I'm
are not allowed to
uncomfortable.
Randy
I was
Bullock.
a soccer player, and I feel uncomfortable about your accusations.
Joe Burrow has this beautiful drive leading them down the field. He scored the touchdown. They
How
took
did
it
Joe
away.
Burrows look?
Burrow actually had a pretty up and down.
Did he
game.
throw a touchdown?
Up and
No,
down.
he ran for one.
Did he throw one? He's a quarterback.
throw one.
I'm confused.
So he
You said
looked.
He, ran
He
for
looked
one.
up and down, but he wasn't like
Yes.
Jimmy Butler
No, he
in
was not
overtime in
Jimmy
the
Butler.
playoffs,
But when
who
it counted-
won yesterday.
Bro,
when it
nobody's
counted-
a Jimmy Butler.
Nobody's a Jimmy
But when
Butler.
it counted,
Continue.
when the chips are down, Joe Burrow gets the ball down 3. He drives the team all the way down into the red zone, hits A.J. Green on what should have been a touchdown. Terrible call.
Oh
by
shit!
him.
He won a game.
But he did not win the game.
Oh, okay.
Because his
I
kicker,
was confused real quick.
because his kicker cramps up in his calf just as he's kicking Randy Bullock and misses a chip shot field goal that would have sent the game.
But you
into
saw a lot of
overtime.
good things out of Joe Burrows.
But, yeah, no,
he's
he
a
was
number
tough.
one
He
pick.
was tough,
You know.
and he led he was tough out there, and
He's
led
a
the
better
2-minute
version of
warning.
Baker Mayfield.
So what's your best pick
Nah,
for
he's
this?
a different kind of player. He's a different kind of player. He's more. He wins in the pocket more than Baker.
All right, Yanni, let's refocus. What's your best pick for this week?
I got to tell you, if you want to give me some pick, I I'll show you guys right here. This is 2 pages just on Carson Wentz's interceptions. All right, so that's the kind of work I was doing. And so if it sounds like I'm fired up, it's because I spent most of the.
I'm gonna
past
be
2
fired
days.
up to tell your damn picks, kid.
I'm getting there. All right, hold
Fired
on.
up.
I'm sorry.
Fire him out of this office.
You got me in here.
Actually, you're fired.
Yanni.
You guys been waiting.
The
to do
fans
that
love
so
you.
long.
No, I can't. You got dead people betting on games. That's how good your picks are. How can you fire somebody like that?
Jeffrey Epstein took the spread.
I only went 2 and 3. This week.
Yanni, just let me talk you up. I'm the hype man. You're just the guy who shakes your head. Now,
Listen.
give us your picks, kid.
I'm getting there.
God.
Win me money, Yanni.
All right. I know it didn't work last time, but I'm running back Joe Burrow. All right, this Browns team isn't ready for prime time. All right, I'm running back.
Well,
Joe
you got
Burrow.
him with the spread. It was a good pick with the spread.
That's fine. I'm running back Joe Burrow tomorrow. +6. The Bengals are at Cleveland. I'm gonna take that 6 this time.
They're at Cleveland,
They're
and
at
Cleveland has
tomorrow.
fans, though, correct?
They are
Would-
going to allow 6,000 fans.
Here's my question: in a Survivor League, would you take the Bengals over the Browns?
So,
No, you want to touch that in
there's
Survivor
better
League.
picks. In fact,
Tell me what the pick is, actually, because I need.
Let
to
him
update
give us
mine.
picks. Yanni, give us your
All
picks
right,
for the rest of the week.
I do like the Bucks in that kind of a format, or you can run back the Steelers if you didn't already do that.
I already
Steelers
did
Broncos.
that.
Yanni, we're on the clock here. You got to give us your picks,
I'm
or you
getting
got to
there. I'm
end.
getting there. Like I said, I didn't have them prepared, but I can look and
Well, you're the
All right.
sports and gambling
All right.
expert.
Mike's
You're
going to send
prepared.
you the bill.
The Buffalo Bills are traveling to Miami. Miami played what looked like a tight game against the Patriots, but they never had a shot. This Bills team's legit. Josh Allen still made a couple of bonehead plays, and they covered the spread last week. I think that runs back. Take the Bills.
Take
over
the
Miami.
Bills. All right, give us another
Bills.
Okay. Bucks big spread against the Panthers. The Panthers look good. Panthers were pretty fun.
What's
against
that spread,
the
Jan?
Raiders. That's a 9.5-point spread. I do like the Bucks to come back and cover it. I think that defense.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady
I think
all
Brady
day.
gets one. I think Brady gets one here, and the defense tightens up and shuts down.
All right, give us
Does
your other
Mike
pick,
Evans?
Yanni.
Does Mike Evans play?
Mike Evans is scheduled to play right now. Godwin showed up with an injury this week.
Okay.
So that's it.
What's the other pick, Jan?
That's that one there. Drum roll, please. The Indianapolis Colts are playing against the Vikings. The Colts are at home. The Vikings, weird game. The Vikings went down pretty big, ended up putting some points up. Colts had a real disappointing outing. I think the Colts bounce back here. The Colts are going to win this game. They're 3-point favorites at home. Give me Indianapolis and Phil Rivers.
You heard it there. We had Yanni the Greek with his picks, NFL picks for next week.
Write them down.
Yanni, thank you. I know you were big on the Jimmy Butler thing. You think Jimmy Butler's going to win this series?
I mean, he looks good. They look good. They're going to represent the East in the finals.
Big
Absolutely.
Butts winning the championship.
Yanni the Greek, thank you for stopping by. We got to thank Duke the Dumpster Mike for stopping by.
Mike
Mike,
Droese.
thank you so much. Your story was amazing. Everybody who tuned in, I hope you took something out of that story. I know I did. And my co-host, Tim, next week we'll be here, I think. We didn't say anything to get us kicked off, did we?
Nah, I might be
We did
here.
pretty good. Toxic Mike, thank you for running a good ship. Hungry for Hope, World, Nation, thank you. We'll see you all next week. We're out of here.
Come to the tailgate. Love y'all.